Contents. Workbook. Chapter. Unit I. Receptive skills, reading and listening skills. Reading skills, comprehension passages. Page No. 2-25. 1. 2. Vocabulary building. 26-47. 3. Correction of sentences. Listening activities, interviews and conversations. Unit 2. Productive skills, speaking and writing skills. 48-70. 4. 71-78. 5. Reported speech. 79-96. 6. 7. Dialogue writing. 97-104. Verbal and non-verbal communication. 105-112. 8. Active and passive voice. 113-126. 9. Introducing guests, welcome speech, vote of thanks. 127-139. 10. Question paper pattern. 140. 11. Model question paper. Invited all the girls of the city to the ball party. In such a situation, all the girls of the city, including her stepsisters, started getting ready to go to this party. But Cinderella's stepmother did not allow Cinderella to go to the party. All the people went to the party while Cinderella was left crying in her house. Then suddenly there was a burst of light and an angel, who was Cinderella's godmother, appeared in front of her. With a flick of magic, she changed Cinderella's dress into a beautiful gown and gave her beautiful glass sandals. The angel, with the wave of her magic wand, turned a pumpkin which was there into a chariot, and the 6 rats which was with Cinderella into horses, and one of them was replaced as the charioteer. Before Cinderella happily left for the ball, the angel tells her that she must return from the party before the fairy magic ends at 12 o'clock. Cinderella went to the party, and the prince's eyes fell on Cinderella and was enchanted by her beauty. The prince danced with Cinderella the entire time, and at 12 o'clock Cinderella remembered the angel's warning and started to run to her chariot. In the hurry, Cinderella left one of her glass sandals on the stairs of the palace. The prince tells his soldiers to find out about Cinderella in the whole city, with the help of the same sandal. The prince's men finally discover Cinderella with the help of that sandal. Then both Prince and Cinderella married to each other, and Cinderella went to live in the palace happily. Preview vocabulary before reading the story or text. Lexical comprehension. Understand key vocabulary in the text. Review new vocabulary during or after the text. Example lexical comprehension questions. What does enchanted mean? What words are most like enchanted, magical or funny, scary or special? Comments. Literal comprehension. Answer who, what, when, and where. Questions. Identify the main ideas of the paragraph. Ask questions from the beginning, middle, and end. Of the story example literal comprehension questions: who was the girl who lost the glass slipper? Where did Cinderella go to live at the end of the story? Sample passage 1. Factual passage. Read the following passage and answer the questions given below. Our country is facing a severe environmental crisis. If not tackled on a war footing, it will certainly lead to socioeconomic and ecological disaster, which will seriously affect the lives of millions of people, especially the poor. Government data usually understate the extent of environmental destruction. The recent satellite data has revealed that India is losing millions of hectares of forest every year, which is many times more than the annual rate of deforestation put out by the Forest Department. Q1. Choose the most appropriate option. 1. If India's environmental problem is not dealt with urgently, it will A. Lead to war. B. Make people unemployed. C. Create problem of poverty. D. Lead to ecological disaster. ANS. Lead to ecological disaster. Q2. Who will be most seriously affected by the ecological disaster? Ans. Millions of people, especially the poor, will be affected by the ecological disaster. Q3. The recent has revealed that India is losing millions of hectares of forest every year. Ans. Satellite data. Q4. The word understate in the paragraph means choose the correct options from below. A. Exaggerate. B. Overture. C. Undervalue. D. Overvalue. Ans. C. Undervalue. Q5. The Forest Department every year puts out the correct annual rate of deforestation. True, false. Ans. False. Chapter 1. Reading Skills Comprehension Passages. Objectives. To acquaint the students with reading comprehension strategies and skills that facilitate their understanding and analyzing of written texts effectively and easily. To introduce the learners to different types of reading comprehension passages which focus on factual and global relevance and data compilation. Reading comprehension is the fundamental skill which is influenced by external factors. The reader's cognitive skills, such as visual processing, processing speed, and reasoning skills, can impact one's ability to comprehend text. Prior knowledge, language fluency, and the ability to make inferences will also play a role in a reader's comprehension. Reading comprehension involves both text comprehension and vocabulary knowledge. It is essential to know what each word means individually and is a part of the whole in addition to what the text is trying to convey. Definition. Comprehension is the understanding and interpretation of what is read. To be able to accurately understand the written material, students must be able to 1. Decode what they read. 2. Make connections between what they read and what they already know. And 3. Think deeply about what they have read. Why is comprehension skill important? Reading comprehension demonstrates your ability to understand, interpret, analyze, and infer written information. Reading comprehension level is indicative of many other important and sought-after skills in the workplace. Communication skills, critical thinking skills, giving attention to details, decision-making ability, and ability to comprehension. Answer what if, why and how. Questions. Applied comprehension. Relate story to existing knowledge or opinion. Comment. Effective comprehension. Understands social and emotional aspects. Different types of reading skills. Understand facts that are not explicitly stated in the story or reading between the lines. Predict endings and anticipate consequences. Example interpretive comprehension questions. How did the pumpkin turn into a carriage? What would have happened to Cinderella if she had not lost her slipper? Not a simple question that can be marked right or wrong. Black circle challenge readers to support their answer with logic or reason. Example applied comprehension questions. Do you think Cinderella was wrong in going to the ball even after her stepmother told her she shouldn't go? Previews social scripts to ensure understanding of plot development. Black circle connect motive to plot and character development. Example effective comprehensive questions. What do you do when you're disappointed because you cannot do something fun? Is that how Cinderella reacted? One of the most obvious, but unnoticed, aspects related to reading purpose is the consideration of the different types of reading skills. There are 4 types of reading skills. We had become familiar with 2 of these reading skills in Envision I. Skimming. Reading rapidly for the main points. Scanning. Reading rapidly to find a specific piece of information. Extensive reading. Reading a longer text, often for pleasure with emphasis on overall meaning. Intensive reading. Reading a short text for detailed information. Here in this text, we are introducing learners to passages which have global and factual relevance and also data compilation passages. the report says. In 2020-21, the loan portfolio saw 47.5% of the frauds in terms of number and 99% in terms of the amount involved. The average time lag between the date of occurrence of frauds and the date of detection was 23 months for the frauds reported in 2020-21. However, in respect of large frauds of 100 crore and above, the average lag was 57 months for the same period, the RBI said. Recently, it was reported that cumulatively, banks in India suffered frauds worth 4.92 trillion as of March 31, 2021, or nearly 4.5% of the total bank credit. This was based on RBI data, which was sought under the Right to Information Act by Saurabh Pandare. The data showed 90 banks and financial institutions reported a total of 45,613 cases of loan fraud till March 31, 2021. Also, the RBI report said there was an increase of 31.3% in counterfeit notes detected in the denomination of 2,500 in 2020-21 compared to the previous year. However, there was a decline in counterfeit notes detected in other denominations. 5 types of reading comprehension. Lexical comprehension. Understand key vocabulary in the text. Preview vocabulary before reading the story or text. Review new vocabulary during or after reading the text. Literal comprehension. Answer who, what, when and where questions. Less than identify the main ideas of the paragraph. Ask questions from the beginning, middle, and end of the story. Interpretive comprehension. Answer what if, why and how questions. Understand facts that are not explicitly stated in the story. Predict endings and anticipate consequences. Applied comprehension. Relate story to existing knowledge or opinion. Not a simple question that can be marked right or wrong. Challenge readers to support their answers with logic or reason. Effective comprehension. Understand social and emotional aspects. Preview social scripts to ensure understanding of plot development. Connect motive to plot and character development. To really understand these different levels, let's take a familiar text and see how different types of questions probe different understandings of the same story. Cinderella was a simple, hard-working girl who lived with her stepmother and stepsisters in her house. Her stepmother and stepsisters used to harass Cinderella and make her do all the household work. One day a message was sent from the royal house in the city that the prince is looking for a girl for his wedding. Because of 3. 2. Global passage. Most of us have experienced war only through books or the media. However, war is a lot more than that, especially for the people who had experienced war personally. The memories of the hardship and difficulty they experienced are firmly imprinted in their minds for the rest of their lives. It is indeed sad that leaders of certain countries quickly declare war whenever there is conflict between two countries. In the past, leaders of countries were seldom concerned with maintaining good relationships with their neighbors but were more interested in gaining more power by conquering other cities. This is why there have been 2 world wars in the first 50 years of the 20th century. War may occur because of various reasons, but more often than not, the reason of war is quickly forgotten amidst the tragedy of it. The amount of destruction that takes place during war is massive, and once started, war spreads like a disease and rarely achieves anything. Many have questioned the necessity of war, especially because of the huge number of towns and cities that are destroyed and people who are killed. The people who call for war are usually the leaders of the country. Ironically, they are also the ones who are safely and comfortably protected in their homes when war happens. The people who come forward and are prepared to sacrifice their lives are the common people, who are also the ones to suffer from the shortage of food and water that is inevitable in any war. Q1. When the writer says that most of us have only experienced war through books or the media, he means that A. Most people have only read about war or seen films about war but have not personally experienced war. B. Books give the complete experience of war more than what the media gives. C. Most of us have experienced war in real life than that is shown in books or media. D. Media gives us the experience of war more than that the book can give us. Ands. Option A. Q2. Why were there 2 world wars in the first half of the 20th century? Ands. Leaders of countries attacked one another as they wanted to increase their power. Q3. Once started, war spreads like a underscore and rarely achieves anything. 7. Ands. Disease. Q4. The phrase firmly imprinted, which is in the paragraph, I mean A. Printed firmly. B. Cannot forget. C. Imprints are firm. D. Impress. Ands. B. Cannot forget. Q5. Suggest a suitable title for the above passage. Ands. War and its consequences. 3. Data compilation passage. Financial frauds. Banks and other financial institutions reported frauds worth $1.38 trillion in 2020-21, down 25% compared to the previous year, when the amount involved was $1.85 trillion, according to the Reserve Bank of India's annual report. In terms of number, these entities reported 15% fewer frauds in 2020-21, at 7,363 compared to the previous year's 8,703 cases. The RBI data takes into account frauds of 1 lakh and above only. Also, the central bank has changed its accounting year to April to March from July to June, and hence, the latest report only covers 9 months, July 2020 to March 2021. In 2019-20, the total fraud cases involving 1 lakh and above had shot up by 28% by volume and 159% by value. The RBI suggests that the share of public sector banks in frauds, both in terms of number and value, has fallen, while that of private sector banks increased in the corresponding period. Furthermore, most frauds are occurring in the loan portfolio of Based on your understanding of the data given in the passage, answer the questions given below. Q1. What was the average time lag with respect to large frauds of 100 crore rupees and above that was reported in 2020-21? A. B. 23 months. Circa 57 months. D. 32 months. Ands. C-57 months. Q2. Why does the latest report only cover 9 months? Ands. The central bank has changed its accounting year to April to March from July-June, and hence, the latest report only covers 9 months. Q3. As per the data in the table given, the number of fraud cases in the financial year 2021, FY21, found in PSBS, public sector banks, is underscore cases. Years. 2,903. Q4. Based on RBI data, which was sought under the Right to Information Act by Saurabh Pandare, we can understand that A. Banks in India suffered frauds worth 4.92 trillion as of March 31, 2021. Or B. Banks in India gained profits worth 4.92 trillion as of March 31, 2021 and banks in India suffered frauds worth 4.92 trillion as of March 31, 2021. Q5. In the year 2020-21, a decline was detected in the counterfeit notes of denomination 500 rupees per compared to notes of other denominations. True, false. Ands. False. Factual passages. Practice test 1. Read the following passages and answer the questions that follow. There is no general agreement about how the planets were formed. The most widely accepted theory is that about 5,000 million years ago swirling clouds of matter began to condense. Through the action of centrifugal force, the heavier molecules were concentrated near the center of the eddies and the lighter, gaseous material was thrown out towards the periphery. Such is the theory. What is known is that 9 satellites began orbiting round the Sun. These are the planets. The planet on which man lives is the third closest to the Sun, with the third shortest orbit. It also has something none of the others has: an atmosphere that can support life in all the manifold forms that exist on our planet. There may be satellites circling other stars in other parts of the universe that have the right ingredients for some sort of life to evolve, but the Earth is the only one in the solar system. 10. Q1. Choose the most appropriate option. The theory of the formation of the planets. A. Is generally agreed upon by everyone. B. Is a debatable one. C. Covers a very wide area. D. Is fairly well known. Q2. According to the passage, what is the theory behind the formation of planets? Ands. Q3. The Earth is the planet which is closest to the Sun. Q4. In the passage, the word periphery means A. Heart. B. Center. C. Middle. D. Edge. Q5. The atmosphere of the Earth makes it possible for the presence of life on it. True, false. Practice test 2. A noble purpose gives meaning to one's own life and is of benefit to others. I realized this when researching on and writing about the life of Jamshedji Tata. What gave one man living in a colonized country the vision to advance it in the community of nations? He not only gave India the power of steel and hydroelectric energy, but also an institution of research. He sent an educationist to Europe and the United States to report on what should be the best model for India. The Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore was recommended as the model, but Jamshedji made it a point to see that his name was not associated with the university. After his death, his dream came true with the establishment of the Indian Institute of Science in Bengaluru. It was to be the fountainhead of science in the decades to come. There are others too whose purpose in life has made a difference to society. Mother. 11. Teresa had a comfortable life at Loreto Convent, Kolkata. On a train journey to Darjeeling, she felt her calling and wanted to give up her comfortable life in the convent and serve the poor and the needy. After that, she took a 3-month nursing course and returned to Kolkata. She devoted her time to the sick and the homeless. Touched by her sacrifice, some of her students joined her and work began. Not everyone has such a strong calling. When I asked her how one could be sure of one's calling, she replied, "Deep down in our hearts we know exactly what our calling is, if we are sincere." Q1. Choose the most appropriate answer. A. Jamshedji Tata sent an educationist to Europe and the United States because he wanted A. Him to go abroad. B. The educationist to be away from him. C. Him to understand the model best suited for India. D. To send him for a vacation. Q2. What are the contributions of Jamshedji Tata to our country? Q3. When Mother Teresa felt her calling, she was on her way to A. Q4. Mother Teresa served the sick and the homeless in Kolkata. True, false. Q5. Identify the theme of the passage and suggest a suitable title. Practice Test 3. Diabetes is a metabolism abnormality that affects the way your body uses blood sugar, glucose, your main source of energy. To understand diabetes, you have to start from the beginning with food. Your body converts a portion of the food you eat and digest into glucose. Glucose is then absorbed into your bloodstream, where it can enter the individual cells of tissue throughout your body to be used as energy. Before your cells will let glucose in, however, they need the help of insulin. 12. Insulin is a hormone produced by your pancreas, a gland located just behind your stomach. Normally, insulin acts like a master key, unlocking the doors of your cells and allowing glucose inside. To simply maintain this process, such as at night when you're asleep, the pancreas releases a low level of insulin on a constant basis. When necessary, such as after a meal, your pancreas increases insulin supply to meet demand. After you eat a meal or a snack, your pancreas releases more insulin to make sure the extra glucose in your bloodstream can enter your cells. If you have more glucose than you need, your body can remove the excess from your blood and store it in your liver, and muscles are converted to fat. Then, when you run low on fuel, your body can release this stored energy back into your bloodstream, where insulin is waiting to usher it into your cells. If you have diabetes, this whole process goes awry. Instead of entering cells throughout your body, excess glucose builds up in your bloodstream, and some of it may eventually be excreted in your urine. This can happen when your pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin, type 1 diabetes, when your cells have become resistant to the effects of insulin, type 2 diabetes, or, more commonly, when both of these problems occur. Choose the most appropriate answer. Diabetes is A. Nervous disorder. B. Metabolic disorder. C. Throat disorder. D. Physical disorder. Q2. What is insulin? Q3. If your body does not produce sufficient insulin, you have diabetes. Q4. Secretions of pancreas decrease during the night. True, false. Q5. Insulin is waiting to usher it into your cells. The word usher in the sentence means A. Lead. B. Follow. C. Trail. D. Route. 13. Global passages. Practice Test 4. Climate change across the world. The weather is a common conversation for many people each day. The weather can change day to day or even from hour to hour. On the other hand, the climate in an area usually takes a long time to change. It is the average temperature and conditions in a specific place over a long period of time, in years. Climate does not change day to day or even month to month, but usually takes hundreds, thousands, or millions of years to change. The climate in one place on Earth is different from another place. For example, the climate in a desert may be hot and dry, but in a rainforest, it is usually warm and humid, and in some mountain areas and other places it will be cold all year long. In the world today, the words climate change is often heard, and it usually refers to the process of the Earth heating up, which is often called global warming. Most people can agree on the weather, but sometimes climate change or global warming leads to disagreement. The Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, and during its life, the climate has changed quite often and has experienced an ice age, warming, and everything in between. All scientists agree that the climate changed often during the first 4.5 billion years. However, it is also a proven fact that the Earth's average temperature has increased about 1.33 degrees Fahrenheit over the past 100 years between the 1900s and 2000s. Reviewing the past 200 years, it has increased about 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. It may not sound like a big change, but it will influence the Earth. The earth is covered like a greenhouse, which is used by some farmers, florists, and others to grow plants. It is a glass-covered building that absorbs the heat from the sun. Greenhouses are very hot. Of course, the earth is not covered with glass, but the greenhouse effect refers to the retention of the sun's warmth in the earth's lower atmosphere by greenhouse gases. The greenhouse gases include mostly carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. These gases, instead of glass, act as a blanket for the earth, helping to keep the earth warm enough to support life, an average of about 59 degrees Fahrenheit. An increase in the greenhouse gases causes the earth to become warmer. Think of it as a heavier blanket. 14. One of the greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, is absorbed by the trees and forests throughout the world, and then released as oxygen. Unfortunately, deforestation, the cutting down of trees and forests to make way for farms, roads, oil mines, and dams further leads to the greenhouse effect and a thicker blanket. A warmer climate can affect the planet negatively. It could lead to heavier precipitation, unusual season changes, heat waves, etc. Polar animals' natural habitats are melting because of warmer temperatures, affecting polar bears and seals. Orangutans in the rainforests are losing their homes, and sea turtles are losing nesting beaches because of rising sea levels. Farming in developing countries faces increased rain, floods, and droughts. Plus, certain kinds of food items may become scarce, unavailable, or more expensive for people to purchase. In summary, there has been climate change before humans began living on the Earth, but the average temperature has increased over the past 200 years. Many scientists believe it is a result of human behavior, and changing some of those behaviors will have a positive effect on climate change and global warming. Q1. Choose the most appropriate answer. Which of the following best explains the difference between climate and weather as it relates to the temperature, precipitation, etc. in an area of the world? A. Climate is daily change and weather is change over a long time period. B. Climate and weather are basically the same. C. Climate cannot be measured daily but weather can. D. Climate does not change day to day, weather. Q2. What does greenhouse effect refer to? Can change day to day. Q3. The Earth is about years old. Q4. Select the natural habitat of the following animals. A. Seals. I. Polar region. E. Beach. B. Orangutans. I. Desert. E. Rainforest. Q5. Identify the theme and suggest a suitable title to the passage. Practice Test 5. The global pandemic coronavirus. The novel coronavirus has given rise to a global pandemic that has destabilized most institutional settings. While we live in times when humankind possesses the most advanced science and technology, a virus invisible to the naked eye has massively disrupted our lives, economies, healthcare, and education systems worldwide. Given the coronavirus's current situation, some households have also had time to introspect on gender roles and stereotypes. For instance, women are expected to carry out household chores like cooking, cleaning, and looking after the family. With men sharing household chores responsibilities during the lockdown period, it gives hope that they will realize the burden that women have been bearing and will continue sharing such responsibilities. This tough period also gave people some time to reflect on the importance of keeping themselves fit. With sufficient time in hand, people started investing their time learning new ways to exercise. Those who never exercised before, giving excuses of busy lives, to develop some new habits of yoga, pranayama, and exercises during the lockdown period. These new habits and people's increased focus on their health, wellness and immunity will surely change the way we lead our lives even in future. Nature too healed itself during the lockdown period. Restricted human movement led to better air quality, cleaner water bodies and joyful wildlife movements. The human beings, we hope, reflected during this time, how some of their unconscious activities caused disruption in nature and worked out ways to adopt environmental-friendly options for their activities in future. This situation also affected the education sector to a great extent. It has forced us to shift from offline to online mode of teaching-learning process, almost immediately without prior preparation. Is it giving us a peek into the reality ahead? Technology-enabled teaching is definitely the future we are looking towards, but it is important to identify key challenges for students and teachers in the current scenario. Once identified, academic leadership and the government can address these through innovations in the focused areas to minimize the effect of pandemic on the education of the students. 16. It is our responsibility that we take all necessary precautions through mask wearing, physical distancing, and hand hygiene as part of daily life. It is highly important to make these new behaviors part of our everyday habits. Traveling to new places, casual cafe visits with a large bunch of friends, spending our weekends in shopping, window shopping and casual strolls, large gatherings and birthday parties and other celebrations, will require some modifications and patience to fit into new normal, keeping all the safety norms in mind. Q1. Choose the most appropriate answer. The outbreak of COVID-19 is called a pandemic because A. It has spread across the globe. B. It has spread across India. C. It is invisible to naked eye. It has disrupted many institutional settings. Q2. According to the passage, the lockdown period made people introspect on gender roles and stereotypes because Q3. Choose the option that is not true. People, who never exercised before, started exercising during the lockdown period because A. They had sufficient time in hand. B. Exercise was the only way to treat people from the novel coronavirus. C. People learnt new ways to exercise their body. D. People understood the importance of health and wellness in the face of the pandemic. Q4. Fill in the blank with the correct option. The pandemic also affected the education sector to a great extent. It has forced us to shift from offline to online mode of teaching-learning process. A. Almost immediately without prior preparation. B. With a lot of preparation and training. Q5. According to the paragraph, the phrase, new normal, means A. Doing things normally like before. B. A new way of living and going about our lives circa which is expected to become abnormal. D. Doing normal things in a new way. Practice Test 6. Worldwide, females are generally treated lower in status and power, relative to males. This may be called gender stratification, although it is sometimes referred to as gender inequality, sexism, patriarchy, and female disadvantage. Many feminists view men's greater economic power and, correspondingly, women's economic dependence on men, to be at the heath of women's lower status and power. Once societies based on money evolved, men's labor appeared to have greater value because it was done for money or the exchange of goods. The important economic contributions that women make collecting fuel, taking care of animals, growing vegetables, doing laundry, preparing food, taking care of children, and so on are frequently forgotten or devalued as natural. Worldwide, men control economies and resources, own more property, and occupy more positions of power in business and banking. This is true in virtually every country, including industrialized nations such as the United States. Men make more money than women, and even when they work the same jobs as women, this tends to be true. Politics is another arena in which women's low power and status are apparent. In the 20th century, activists worked to gain women the right to vote, called women's suffrage. In most countries, voting rights have only been awarded to women in the last 30 years. Even in the United States, it was not until 1920 that women were granted the right to vote. By the year 2003, all countries that allow males to vote have granted women that same right, except for Kuwait. Not only are male activities valued over female ones, but in most countries, females themselves value male children over female children, in what is known as son preference. All over the world, people greet the birth of boys and girls differently. Moss, 1993. For example, among the Turkana people of northern Kenya, great feasting accompanies the birth of a boy, but there is no feasting if the baby is a girl. According to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, 2003, the areas most affected by son preference are South Asia, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Pakistan, the Middle East, Algeria, Egypt, Jordan, the Libyan Arab Jamahiriya, Morocco, the Syrian Arab Republic, Tunisia, Turkey, and parts of Africa, Cameroon, Liberia, Madagascar, Senegal. Although son preference is not as obvious in the West, great value is still placed upon producing a male heir to carry on the family name. Q1. Choose the most appropriate answer. The passage indicates that gender stratification means A. Men and women fighting for rights. B. Females being lower in status and power relative to males. C. Gender statistics not being maintained. D. Advantage of being a woman. Q2. According to the passage, which are the important economic contributions that women make but which are devalued? Q3. By the year, women of all the countries got the right to vote. Q4. Tick the correct option. Son preference means A. Females valuing male children over female children. B. Females valuing female children over male children. Q5. Identify the theme of the passage and suggest a suitable title. Data compilation. Practice test 7. Read the passage carefully and understand the data given. The UN's 2017 International Year tells that sustainable tourism is an important tool for development, most importantly in poor communities and countries. Today, sustainability, environmental, social, and economic, is increasingly recognized as the benchmark for all tourism business. As noted by the UN World Tourism Organization, 57% of international tourist arrivals will be in emerging economies by 2030. The various tourism terms are defined as follows. Category. Definition. Ecotourism. Responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment, socially and economically sustains the well-being of local people, and creates knowledge and understanding through interpretation and education of all involved, including staff, travelers, and community residents. Ethical tourism. Tourism in a destination where ethical issues are the key driver, e.g. social injustice, human rights, animal welfare, or the environment. Geotourism. Pro-poor tourism. Tourism that sustains or enhances the geographical character of a place, its environment, heritage, aesthetics, culture, and well-being of its residents. Tourism that results in increased net benefit for the poor people in a destination. Responsible tourism. Tourism that maximizes the benefits to local communities, minimizes negative social or environmental impacts, and helps local people conserve Hegel cultures and habitats or species. Sustainable tourism. tourism that leads to the management of all resources in such a way that economic, social, and aesthetic needs can be fulfilled while maintaining cultural integrity, essential ecological. Based on data collected by a survey by Travel Bureau, the following market profile of an ecotourist was constructed. Age: 35 to 54 years old, although age varied with activity and other factors such as cost. Gender: 50% female and 50% male, although clear differences based on activity were found. Education: 82% were college graduates. A shift in interest in ecotourism from those who have high levels of education to those with less education was also found, indicating an expansion into mainstream markets. Household composition: no major differences were found between general tourists and experienced ecotourists. Party composition: a majority, 60%, of experienced ecotourism respondents stated they prefer to travel as a couple, with only 15% stating they preferred to travel with their families, and 13% preferring to travel alone. Experienced ecotourists equals tourists that had been on at least one ecotourism-oriented trip. Trip duration: the largest group of experienced ecotourists, 50%, preferred trips lasting 8 to 14 days. Expenditure: experienced ecotourists were willing to spend more than general tourists, the largest group, 26%. Important elements of trip: experienced ecotourists' top 3 responses were a. Wilderness setting, b. Wildlife viewing, c. Hiking, trekking. Motivations for taking next trip: experienced ecotourists' top 2 responses were a. Enjoy scenery, nature, b. New experiences, places. G. Choose the most appropriate answer. The World Tourism Organization of the UN, in an observation, shared that emerging economies of the world will gain 57% of their annual profits from international tourists. B. Countries with upcoming economies shall see maximum tourist footfall from a. all over the world in the next decade, c. a large number of international tourists in 2030 will be from developing countries, d. barely any tourist in the next decade shall travel from an economically strong nation to a weak one. 20. Q2. Define the term ecotourism. Q3. According to the survey, when it comes to the education of ecotourists, 82% of them were. Q4. According to the survey conducted by the Travel Bureau, the total percentage of experienced ecotourists who did not prefer to travel alone was a. 60%, b. 75%, c. 15%, d. 13%. Q5. According to the survey, one of the most powerful driving forces leading experienced ecotourism to invest in new trips was to enjoy scenery and experience a new place. True, false. Practice test 8. Read the passage given below and understand the data. Technological evolution is a certainty. Cyber-physical systems, big data and the Internet of Things, IoT, have been changing the infrastructure of our world. In the 2020s, these phenomena, which are still in their nascency, will rapidly accelerate due to the increasing digitization of key areas such as health, science, transport, communications and energy. The ubiquity of technology, and its increased ability to connect and communicate, has paved the way for this tipping point. Beneath the surface, we are moving towards an explosion of change. Over 50% of our global population is now online, and the other half is following fast. To be precise, around 726 million people joined the web in the last 3 years. These new users will change the shape of the Internet, Many of them will be lower income. They are choosing smartphones over laptops and tablets and are more likely to use voice commands. Almost 1/3 of U.S. homes are smart homes. This is set to grow to more than half of all homes by 2024. Total percent smart homes in the U.S. 70, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 2017. Source: Statista March 2018. 2024. Geodata and the IoT will create new markets and supply chains. The automation of manufacturing, services and mobility has already begun. Artificial intelligence, AI, will reach what Gartner terms the plateau of productivity, in which the technology becomes both mainstream and viable. McKinsey estimates that 70% of companies may adopt at least one AI technology by 2030. It is unlikely they will all use it well, but those that do could manage to take us to a place where man and machine are indistinguishable. Bioscience has the potential to be transformative in the 2020s. Gene editing, CRISPR, technology will likely soon be able to edit genomes to allow animal organs to be accepted into human bodies, transforming, and perhaps saving, the lives of people currently waiting for organ transplants. Similar technology can also be used to combat inherited diseases and even cancer. Elsewhere, gene therapy experiments are using the body's immune system to fight cancer through re-engineering our cells. Technology has inarguably improved science, health, communications and transport. However, technology has not necessarily corresponded to increased economic productivity. Indeed, many of the most technologically advanced countries have seen productivity stagnate and stall, as discussed in Growing Inequality and Opportunity. In the 2020s, many questions around technology will be resolved. The scaffolding is in place. This will be the decade in which AI, geodata, the IoT, bioscience, and quantum computing are given the opportunity to change our world. Whether this change will be surface level or truly transformative remains to be seen. Once the questionnaire. Once the responses were received, the data collected was tabulated, Table 1, for analysis. Table 1. Awareness level among respondents. Questions. Yes %, no %, can't say %. 1. Do you feel that bursting crackers is a must during festivities? 46. 54. 0. 2. Do you think most people abuse environmental resources during celebration of festivals? 72. 28. 0. 3. Do you think that celebrations and festivities result in uniting people? 69. 64. 32. 4. Do you enjoy bursting crackers for amusement? 68. 32. 0. 5. Do you feel pressured to burst crackers during festivals as an expectation of your social status? 6. Are you aware of waste segregation and disposal guidelines for better ecology? 82. 22. 12. 6. 56. 40. The study recommended the imposition of strict rules and regulations as opposed to a total ban on all festive activities which have a drastic impact on our environment. The researchers believed that such measures would help in harnessing some ill effects that add to the growing pollution and suggested further studies be taken up across the country to assess awareness about ecological degradation. The observations made in the study pointed to the environmental groups and eco-clubs fighting a losing battle due to city traffic issues, disposal of plastics, garbage dumping and all sorts of ecological degradation. The researchers stressed that the need of the hour is increasing awareness among people to reduce ecological pollution, which can be facilitated by celebrating all festivals in an eco-friendly manner. Q1. Choose the most appropriate answer. According to McKinsey, A. 70% of companies will employ more labor force by the year 2030. B. Nearly 70% of the companies will adopt use of one AI by the end of this decade. C. Nearly 70% of all the companies will stop using AI by the end of 2030. D. 70% of all companies will depend on people who can use computers by the end of 2030. Q2. How can gene editing transform the lives of human beings in the future? Q3. The total percentage of smart homes in the U.S. by the year 2024 will be. Q4. According to the report, what will generate new market and supply chains? A. Artificial intelligence. B. Artificial intelligence and Internet. C. Geodata and Internet of Things. D. Access to metadata. Q5. According to the passage, technology has most necessarily corresponded to increased economic productivity. True, false. Practice test 9. Read the following excerpt from a case study titled Impacts of Festivities on Ecology. Festivals are synonymous with celebration, ceremony, and joy. However, festivals bring to fore the flip side of celebrations: pollution, air, water, soil, and noise. This led to the need of assessing the awareness level among people about ecological pollution during festivals. So, a study was conducted by scholars of an esteemed university in India. This study was titled Awareness Towards Impact of Festivals on Ecology. There were two main objectives of the study. The first one was to assess the awareness level among people about ecological protection during festivities. Exploring solutions to bring awareness about celebrating festivals without harming ecology was the second objective. The method used to collect data was a simple questionnaire containing 6 questions, shared with 50 respondents across 4 selected districts of a state in the southern region of India. The research began by understanding the socio-economic conditions of the respondents before sharing the 23